Hi, Luke here with Solid State Logic, and today we're taking a closer look at SSL UF1 with Pyramix.
UF1 is an incredibly powerful one-fader controller that packs in the same functionality you'd expect from a control surface twice its size, boasting two high-resolution displays, a fully motorised fader and all-metal chassis. UF1 brings SSL quality and hands-on control straight to your desktop. With comprehensive command of your DAW, UF1 is equipped with dedicated transport buttons, as well as the ability to control pans, sends, plugins, and even customize 46 soft keys specifically to your workflow. What's more, UF1 allows you to work with up to 3 different DAWs simultaneously and easily switch between them. What really sets UF1 apart is its integration with the SSL Meter plugin. Viewable in all its glory on the impressive 4.3-inch IPS display and completely controllable from the UF1 and the 360 plugin mixer. UF1 can be used on its own as your main DAW controller, or it can be partnered with the UF8 to give you an enhanced SSL control surface experience. It's also the perfect hardware expansion for the UC1 plugin controller, giving you direct access to 360-enabled channel strips and on-screen visual feedback of your EQ curves. When unpacking UF1, you will find a 12-volt DC power supply, 2 stands and an associated screw and hex key to attach them to the UF1. You'll also find a 1.5 meter USB-C type cable and handy C to A adapter should you require it. Flip the UF1 over and choose which set of pre-drilled holes to attach the stands to. Different hole pairs give you different angle options. You can even swap the rubber feet to the opposite end of each stand to allow for a steeper angle. Once your stands are set up, connect the UF1 to your computer via the USB-C port. The USB-A port labelled through is a built-in USB hub that can be used to chain through a UF8 or UC1, or it can be used for dongles. The 2 jack sockets are for connecting foot switches and can be assigned to door commands like play and stop. Now it's time to register our UF1 and download the required software. Registering UF1 allows you to claim your complimentary SSL Meter plugin license, so let's do that first. Go to the SSL website and log into your account, or create one if you need to. Once logged in, go to My Products, then click Register Product, then Register Hardware. Choose SSL UF1 from the drop-down list and fill in the form. The serial number of the UF1 can be found on the base of your unit. Once successfully registered, click on Get Your Additional Software. Then enter your iLok user ID and click Validate. Once validated by the system, click Deposit and then your Meter plugin license will be deposited into your iLok account. Open iLok License Manager and activate your SSL Meter plugin to your computer or iLok. Finally, head back to the SSL website and go to the Downloads page and filter the list to SSL 360. Download and install the SSL Meter plugin and the SSL 360 software itself, which is required for UF1 to function. Once SSL 360 is installed, launch the app. Your UF1 will appear on the home page, alongside any other SSL controllers you may have connected. The first thing you'll need to do is update the UF1 firmware via the Update Firmware button. Do not unplug the unit whilst this is in progress. Once the firmware update has completed, allow a bit of time for UF1 to reappear on screen. To complete the UF1 hardware setup, you can go to the Sleep Settings menu and adjust the amount of inactivity time before the UF1 hardware goes to sleep. Just type in your preferred value into the green text area, or you can turn the sleep off completely if you prefer by disabling the square tick box. One of UF1's special features is its ability to trigger keyboard command sequences from your favourite DAW shortcuts. These are assigned using SSL 360, which we'll cover later. When you first plug in your UF1, macOS should present the Keyboard Setup Assistant window because it wants you to identify which region, Europe, America or Japan, this as unyet identified keyboard is from. If you connect UF1 to your computer before installing SSL 360, you'll need to close this Setup Assistant and come back to it because SSL 360 needs to be installed on your computer in order to continue through this setup process. Once 360 has been installed, you can make this Setup Assistant reappear again by doing the following. Open up Mac System Preferences. Go to Keyboard and click Change Keyboard Type. When presented with the Identifying Your Keyboard screen and you are being asked to press the key immediately to the right of the Shift key, go to UF1, press and hold the 360 button, and whilst keeping this pressed, press the Mac Key ID button. This will move you through to the final steps of the process where you can choose your region and click Done. Next, we want to configure UF1 to work with Pyramix. To do this, let's open up the 360 app either by launching the application or clicking on the 360 button on the control surface, then navigating to the control setup page. In the DAW configuration section, choose Pyramix from the drop-down list for DAW1. If you use other DAWs, you can go ahead and choose these for DAWs 2 and 3 also. Or you can just leave them set to none if you only use one DAW. After this, proceed to the UF1 page and set layer 1 to Pyramix. Again, if you're using multiple DAWs, you can set layers 2 and 3 also, or you can choose the 360 plugin mixer. Once you've configured your layers for UF1, you can easily switch between them by pressing and holding the 360 button, and whilst keeping this held down, press the relevant DAW from the top menu. You'll notice there's nothing much happening on screen yet, and that's because you need to configure an MCU controller inside of Pyramix. So, within Pyramix, open up the Settings, then All Settings menu. Then, go to Remote Control, Controller, and then click on Add. Then, enter a name for the controller. And now set the driver to Oasis. Click Next on the Properties button, and then in the Oasis configuration window, set the transport to EMC. Now, click on the Properties button and select SSL vMIDI port 1 for both MIDI in and out ports. If you've just got a UF1, or a UF1 and a UF8, then you only need to enable SSL vMIDI port 1, because UF8 and UF1 both communicate on the first port of a given controller layer. But if you're configuring Pyramix on layer 2, the port number would start with 5, and on layer 3, it would start with 9. Finally, in the controller drop-down menu, please select SSL UF8 Mackie control and press OK. Now proceed to close all the various different windows. With our setup complete, the UF1 has bounced into action with the track meter and track name on the small display, and across the large LCD we have the 4 VPOT modes and first 4 channels of the bank displayed above the 4 VPOTs. On the bottom of the small display you'll see the parameters bar currently assigned to the VPOT mode, which right now is Pan, highlighted by the soft key assignment in white on the small LCD screen. Grabbing the VPOT will allow you to adjust the parameter, like so. It's a similar affair on the large display, where across the bottom you can see the first 4 channels of the current controller bank, and you can control the pan of these channels in the same way. And as each bank consists of 8 channels, you can use the 5 to 8 button to get to channels 5 to 8 in the bank, which will now be displayed across the 4 VPOTs. Down in the fader section, we have the solo, cut or mute and select keys, along with a super smooth 100mm motorised fader. And finally, neither the flip or master key have a function in Pyramix, so are therefore disabled. Moving to the bottom of UF1, we come to the primary transport control keys, with rewind, fast forward, stop, play and record. Above them then we have the secondary transport controls, which from left to right in Pyramix, the first 2 keys are assigned to move the cursor to the previous or next marker, followed by loop, an unassigned button on the click icon, as well as quick key 1, which is assigned to open the mixer view, and quick key 2 as the alt modifier key. These can of course be reassigned in the 360 app, as can any of the soft keys on the control surface. So, let's say we wanted to change the function of the keys in the secondary transport that are currently unassigned. We simply open up 360, go to the UF1 page, click on the DAW commands button and find what we want from the list. So, for example, if I'd rather have this key assigned to open the fader editor, then I can reassign this like so. Now, when I go back to UF1, you'll see this key is now performing that function. Finally, the Shift button repurposes the secondary transport keys to be my automation modes, for which we have off, read, write, trim, latch and touch. So let's go ahead and put the channel into automation mode by selecting the channel with the cell key and then pressing the desired automation button. Moving up from the transport, we come to the cursor keys. Here we can use the up and down cursor keys to increase and decrease all track heights, and the left and right keys will move between track start and endpoints. In Pyramix, we can use the UF1's jog wheel to scroll through the session, moving through the timeline forward by moving the jog wheel in a clockwise rotation and backwards in an anti-clockwise rotation. Be aware the scrub soft key has no active control in Pyramix and is therefore disabled. Let's now take a look at using the channel encoder. By default, the channel encoder is used to move your DAW tracks across the UF1 surface in increments of one channel at a time. Pushing the channel encoder brings up a submenu with different modes it can be assigned to. To choose a different option, simply scroll until it's highlighted, then push to confirm. Fader cell mode allows us to move the focused fader within the confines of a bank of controller channels. For example, I have now changed UF1's fader so that it is looking at channel 5 in the current controller bank, which you can see in the top area of the display. You may need to use this function to access tracks at the end of Pyramix's mixer when the bank of 8 faders UF1 is controlling butts up against the end of the session. Focus mode emulates the scroll functionality of a mouse. This can be a really nice way of controlling plugins or anything else on screen that responds to a mouse scroll operation. Simply open a plugin, I've got BusComp2 open here, and hover your computer mouse over a control and turn the encoder. Now I can dial in the perfect amount just as if I was using analog hardware by letting my ears set the level instead of the mouse. The final channel encoder mode is volume, allowing me to control the system volume level from the UF1 if the audio device I'm using can be controlled by the operating system's volume up and down. For example, if you're on the road with your headphones plugged into your computer's built-in audio output. Earlier in this video manual, we discussed control of pans using the V-pots, and in Pyramix we can access different pan controls by cycling through the various pan arrangements by repeatedly pressing the pan button on the small LCD soft key. When we first select pan mode, we're able to control the left and right pan positions of the channels across the 4 V-pots, and of course, the next 4 of the selection via the 5 to 8 button. Now, if we wish to explore some other of Pyramix's panning modes, we can cycle through them by repeatedly clicking the pan soft key, where the pan modes will be displayed briefly across the track names. The Group aux and Group bus soft keys assign the send level controls across the 4 V-pots on UF1, depending on if we're working with sends to groups or buses. In Pyramix, let's navigate to the bank of channels I wish to control the sends on and press the aux bus button, keeping in mind these same workflows also apply to aux group. After selecting the aux bus soft key, I can access the 4 send slots on channels 1 to 4 of the current fader bank, and with the 5 to 8 key, access channels 5 to 8 of the bank, but let's jump back to 1 to 4. Pushing on the soft key again lets me cycle to the next send slot, where we can see the bus assignment briefly across the V-pot text replacing the track name. Now, I can cycle back to the first send slot by pressing through with the aux bus soft key. We can access Pyramix's Strip Tools, EQ and Dynamics section with the use of UF1's V-pots. So let's first take a look at controlling the EQ. First, let's open up Strip Tools window and then select the EQ soft key. Keep an eye on the V-pot labels as we'll see the parameters flash up on the screen before returning to the track name. The EQ works by presenting one parameter across all channels in the current selection, and we can move through the parameter bands by cycling through them by repeatedly pressing the EQ button. We start with EQ gain 1, which you can see me controlling here. Then, on the next cycle of the EQ key, we're now moved on to the EQ band frequency. Hitting the EQ again will move then on to band 2's gain, then frequency, and so forth. We can also use the Alt modifier key, mapped to Quick Key 2, to switch between frequency and cue width per band, which will display on the V-pot labels, which you can see here in the EQ window on the strip control. And now, if I move to gain control via the EQ soft key, the modifier now allows me to move through alternative bell and shelf shapes. If we then move to the next soft key bank, we can select the dynamic soft key on bank 2, and now the V-pot assignments are controlling the threshold control on each channel of the selection. We can cycle through the parameters by hitting the dynamics key again, moving between controls. We can also access the expander in this V-pot mode by using the Alt modifier key, and move from the threshold key. The Alt modifier will allow us to control the expander threshold, and on the next dynamics parameter, move between the compressor ratio and the expander ratio. Earlier in the video, we looked at reassigning some DAW commands to our secondary transport keys. Now, let's take a look at reassigning a soft key to a keyboard shortcut. To do this, let's go into 360 and go into the Pyramix layer and select soft key bank 9. One of my frequently used commands is to consolidate clips, so let's set this up on a second soft key. This time, I'm choosing keyboard macro instead of DAW command, and I'll enter Control Q, and then in the short label section, enter the name that will appear on the soft key label. Now, all I need to do is close the window and accept the new command, and we can see the new custom key command on UF1. One final thing to mention, jumping back into 360 and the keyboard macro editor window, is the ability to add a delay between the commands. This can be used for more complex sequences where software windows sometimes take a short time to open, ensuring the command is executed properly at each stage. Any changes you make to soft key assignments are automatically saved in the background for you by 360. But if you wish to save or load a different profile, for example a tracking configuration and a mixing configuration, you can do this via the Save and Load buttons on the left-hand menu. If you wish to reset a DAW profile to its factory ship settings, simply use the Revert button. When using UF1 with Pyramix, there are 3 different modes to choose from. We can toggle the different modes by simply pressing the Mode button, or we can jump straight to the desired mode by pressing and holding Mode and then using the options on the soft keys to jump straight to that mode. The default mode we have is General DAW, which is the mode we've been working in so far. When we change to DAW fader mode, the VPOTs will now control the fader levels for the 4 channels in the controller bank. We can access channels 5 to 8 by simply pressing the 5 to 8 button like so, but let's jump back to 1 to 4. The final mode is the SSL Meter mode, allowing me to directly control the SSL Meter plugin parameters. We'll cover this in a moment, but let's first briefly explore the UF8 and UF1 combo. The UF1 is a perfect complement to the UF8 control surface. As you can see, both controllers are in perfect sync. As I select pan on one, the other unit follows. Same for sends. Then, for even more flexibility, I can have the channel encoders working in different modes. For example, I can put the UF1 into focus mode, which emulates the mouse scroll, great for quick hands-on access to DAW parameters, whilst the channel encoder on UF8 remains in default channel mode, allowing me to bank the control surface around the session, one channel at a time. One of the primary applications of the UF1 is to control the SSL Meter plugin and deliver key information on your mix without cluttering your DAW view. We can access meter mode in 2 different ways. If you are on your DAW layer, then simply toggle to the yellow mode. You can also toggle into the meter mode when UF1 is assigned to the plugin mixer layer, but more on this later. As I insert the SSL Meter plugin onto my mix bus in the DAW, it automatically appears on the UF1 screen. We can toggle through the 3 different views of the meter plugin directly from the UF1 overview, to the analog meters, to the 31-band real-time analyzer. The meter plugin is also mirrored in the SSL 360 plugin mixer sidebar above the bus compressors. Back to UF1. The reset button clears any overloads or max values. Fine puts the VPOTs into a finer resolution for dialing in precise parameter values, and the preset button allows me to quickly load my meter plugin presets directly from the surface. The first VPOT always allows me to select from any of the 8 possible meter plugins that are connected to 360. In the overview screen, on the left, we can see instantaneous peak and RMS levels on the meters, and we can change the scale by cycling through the parameters via the second VPOT, with various linear, non-linear and K-system options. The next VPOT gives us control of the RMS integration time, which can be reset to default by clicking on the VPOT. The meter readout in the centre of the screen gives me a precise text feed to understand the meters, with max and current readouts for both peak and RMS levels. To the right of the screen we have the Lysergiu phase scope, along with stereo balance and phase correlation meters above and below. The fourth VPOT allows me to change the fade rate of the Lysergiu. I can use the page right arrow to get to the peak hold time and to set whether true peak metering is on or off. Moving to the analog view, we're presented with a VU meter readout by default, a trusted metering method for analog balances used in music studios for years. The VU meter display uses 2 needles to give insight to your mix, with the black needle displaying the current level and the red needle the max level. Amongst the parameters for the VU meter, we have the choice of picking between the +4 dBu 0 VU standard or the -2 dBu 0 VU standard. And to the right of that, we have the reference level on the fourth VPOT, which allows us an easy way of tweaking the VU's operation to suit your preferred gain staging in the DAW. If you are using a VU meter as a critical part of your hybrid mixing system, then you would set the reference level to match your digital to analog converter's operating level. For example, for a +18 dBu system, set the reference to -18. Then if you use a signal generator to send a sine wave of 4 dBs higher, i.e. -14 dBFS, you'll see the VU readout as 0. Moving to the second parameter page, we have options for the max needle, allowing us to switch it off, give it a 2-second hold, or move it to an infinite max reading. The third VPOT gives us the option to change the VU from monitoring left and right to mid-side, and finally on the fourth VPOT, we can dial in a global delay for the meter plugin, should you need to manually compensate for differing latencies across multiple DAW buses. Finally, moving back to the first page of the soft keys, you can switch from VU to PPM with the second VPOT, PPM being the popular metering reference in broadcast for balancing program material. The final view from the meter plugin is the Real-Time Analyser, or RTA. This view gives us a 31-band real-time analyzer graphic readout displaying the source material's frequency response between 20 Hz and 20 kHz. Via the second VPOT, we can interrogate each band independently to see real-time level information displayed at the top of the graph, as well as adjusting the scale top and bottom parameters via VPOTs 3 and 4 to narrow down our viewpoints like so. Moving to soft key page 2, we can then add further adjustment to the display, selecting peak hold time, RTA weighting options, and finally RTA averaging from real-time to fast, medium, slow, or infinite settings. The last of which is great for getting an idea of the tonal qualities of your entire mix. On the final parameter page, you can specify the analysis source, which defaults to left and right sum, but can be changed to be left only, right only, mid, or side. UF1 is the perfect hardware extension for the UC1, giving deeper access to the 360-enabled channel strip plugins like Channel Strip 2 and 4KB via the plugin mixer layer in SSL 360. When working in the plugin mixer layer, we can jump between SSL Meter mode and channel strip mode. Meter mode is identical to accessing the meter plugin and its parameters from a DAW layer, so now we're going to focus on channel strip mode. Firstly, let's set the UF1 to control the plugin mixer on layer 3. Next, let's make sure the tick box for UF1 follows selected plugin mixer channel strip instance is on, but let's leave automatically page soft keys to follow last move channel strip in plugin parameter disabled for now. Then, in the control setup page, make sure that the plugin mixer transport is linked to the DAW your channel strips are hosted within. This ensures we get the DAW transport controls on the plugin mixer layer. Now that's set, let's jump across to the plugin mixer page, where we can see all our 360 enabled channel strips we have in our DAW session. I can hide and close the sidebar to view my connected meter plugins and bus compressor instances. I can also hide or show the fader tray section and collapse my meters at the top if I want to manipulate my screen real estate further. If we take a look at the UF1 on the small display above the fader, we can see the track's name on the selected channel strip, along with the inserted channel strip type, bypass key, dB level, and our pan position, controllable via the VPOT below. If we jump over to the large screen on the UF1, we can see the currently selected DAW time display readout in the top centre, and the current DAW host to the left, which we can change directly from the UF1 by clicking on the channel encoder, cycling to another DAW host if we have one, and pushing to confirm. Please note that this section of the tutorial video is DAW agnostic, so don't be concerned that we have Pro Tools on the display here. The functionality from UF1 is similar regardless of DAW. On the opposite side of the display, we see the current soft key bank page, which we can cycle through as you'd expect with the arrow keys. At the bottom of UF1, Quick Key 1 is assigned to Solo Clear for any DAWs where 360 is not linked to the DAW's own solo and cut system, and Quick Key 2 allows you to put the encoders into fine resolution mode. And finally, in the middle of the large display, we can see the visualization of the EQ curve on the currently selected channel strip. Across the VPOTs below, we have access to the channel strip parameters via paging the soft key banks, and you can see the high and low pass filters, followed by each EQ band's gain, frequency and Q width mapped to the associated VPOTs, along with the soft key toggles for bandpass and curve types if available. The real beauty of combining UF1 and UC1 is that certain parameters previously limited to UC1's extended functions menu are now accessible via the first page of UF1 soft keys, making the duo a powerful pair, no more menu diving required. As you can see, we can access the pan, width, mic pre, out trim and compressor mix all across the VPods. And we now have access to the plugin fader too, as well as solo and cut. Scrolling through the channels via the encoder on the UF1 will cause the UC1 to follow and vice versa. We can also use the bank buttons to move in blocks of 8 by quickly navigating through our mix. Whilst we're looking at the navigation of the channels in the plugin mixer, it's also worth noting that we can use the cursor keys to quickly navigate the plugin mixer window, with the up and down arrows moving us vertically up and down the channel strip and left and right allowing us to scroll through the mixer window horizontally. A really cool feature is the master mode, which allows UC1 and UF1 to work independently. Pressing master, I can now set UF1 to control a different channel to UC1. This is convenient if we wish to control one channel's EQ whilst working on another's dynamic sections perhaps, or if we wish to leave the UF1 to control the fader of a lead vocal whilst working on other channels with a UC1 surface. A final tip, if you are using UF1 without a UC1, then you may wish to enable automatically page soft keys to follow last moved channel strip parameter, so that UF1 will automatically page its controls to the relevant page of parameters in response to moving a plugin or plugin mixer control. For example, if I move the ratio control on this compressor, then UF1 pages to show me the ratio control on the surface and I can quickly dive in for hands-on control of it.
We hope you've enjoyed this UF1 tutorial video, and for more information on UF1, head to the SSL website. Or for more information on using UF1 with a different DAW, check out some of our other UF1 videos on the Solid State Logic YouTube page.